So on this channel, I've tested and reviewed many different split keyboards, but none of them have impressed me as much as this NocFree Lite wireless split keyboard. I cannot believe the price point it offers, wireless connectivity, and the amazing typing experience, all the software customizations that you would get on very expensive keyboards, and it just feels so good to type on. That is the most important thing about this. The ergonomics, the simple basic nature of this keyboard really avoids all the fancy frills and really gives you a lot of value for your money. So in this video, I'm going to convince you why that's the case. Let's get right into it. All right, first, let's talk about what you get in the box. Now, I have to say the unboxing experience is quite nice. You open up the box kind of like on both sides, and it's a very nice presentation overall. Now, you obviously get a wireless dongle. You get a keycap and switch puller. What's really great about this keyboard is that you can take out the keycaps, customize it as you wish, although the included PBT keycaps feel absolutely amazing. I really like their profile. I think they're like cherry-based profile. And then the included switches are just so well lubricated. They feel so good. I'm actually using the brown switches and I've really enjoyed using them. The typing experience is absolutely amazing, but you can obviously customize it. You can swap it out if you get bored, you want to try different types of more exotic switches. And of course you get your typical USB-C cable to connect the two halves together. And of course a regular USB cable to plug it in. Now they do offer some optional accessories. This one right here is their really nifty carrying case. And what's so great about this keyboard, the fact that it's so compact, and it's also very lightweight because it's made of, the appropriate materials. It doesn't need to be super heavy. I don't need something ultra duty. The ABS plastic made by the case feels really good. But anyways, being able to quickly transport this, put this into your case. I basically bring this keyboard everywhere I go. If I'm going to go traveling, this feels so light. I really like how unexcessively heavy it is. Now, one of the things you'll definitely want to get as an optional accessory is the foam. The foam feels really good. This one has it. It really gives it that really nice, sound to the keyboard. It doesn't like vibrate. It doesn't have a lot of resonance. So I definitely recommend paying that extra. I think it's like 10 bucks. It's not that too bad. And they pre-install it for you. Honestly, I just think that foam should just come included with the kit. I don't know why it's an optional accessory. I don't know why you would not want that. Now, some other keyboards I've tried without foam, they don't sound as good and the typing experience is not as nice. So definitely take that option if you can. Now, also as an optional accessory are the palm rests. Now, these are Walnut palm rests. They're fully made of one piece and they're just very elegant. They match perfectly with the actual keyboard. You can see the size over here fits perfectly. And what I really like about this type of setup is that they're not connected to the keyboard. I really didn't like some of the implementations of keyboards where they were just attached to it and you couldn't really customize it. Now, obviously you probably want it to be right next to the keyboard, but sometimes you might want to have it over here and then you have that more of an extension wrist over here. So I kind of like that sometimes. Sometimes I just move it up. But yeah, I actually kind of prefer it like this because it kind of keeps my wrist more neutral. Now with the palm rests, you get these special type of tent kits and all you have to do is magnetically place them in, and you also just have to flip out the switch over here. And this is what I like about this keyboard so much, is that it's so simple. You don't need to get some separate accessory or like invest so much more money. It's a very simple tenting option if you prefer that. Now personally for myself, I don't really like to tent my keyboards, so I like to keep them flat, as neutral as possible. Now if you're on a budget and you want to save some money, this is my favorite palm rest. I love it so much. I love the fact that it's so long, because when you have a split keyboard, you're obviously going to have the keyboard further away from you, so you need a little bit more length. And then it also helps you have the mouse included as part of the entire kit. Now this particular model does not have RGB support. This is a feature that I would never ever use. I never cared to have RGB. Yes, it's nice to look at sometimes, but honestly, if you want to save money, and this is what I like, this is the theme of this type of keyboard, is that it doesn't add a lot of unnecessary bells and whistles that you'll never use. For example, like, keys all around the keyboard, or extra like accessories that you can attach to it, or the ability for this keyboard to stay connected at all times. I just don't think you're going to ever use that. I mean, this is a split keyboard after all. By the way, it does kind of combine nicely together. So if you have to share this keyboard with someone who's not used to split keyboards, then you can totally just have it like that, and then you can just type. It doesn't have all these extra features that you don't necessarily need. Obviously, you can go ahead and buy the special edition that does have an RGB light. But yeah, saving money is also really nice. So one thing that's really unique about this keyboard is the arrow key cluster at the bottom right corner. Yes, they had to make the shift key a little bit smaller and then move the !/ key towards the end of the keyboard. But after a while, I got really used to it, and I actually come to really appreciate the arrow keys. After a long day of using the keyboard and having to use modifier keys in order to get the arrow keys near the I, J, K, and L, sometimes it's just nice to move my hand around, which is more ergonomic and probably in the long term healthier for my wrist, just to the arrow key clusters. Now I know some purists may say, no, you must always keep your hands near the home rows, but honestly, this has really helped me in the long term, especially when I'm doing tedious things like coding, navigating code, or Premiere Pro editing. Now, in terms of the battery, all you have to do is flip a switch on both sides and then connect the dongle, and then you can go onto the software website. I'm going to talk about the software a little bit later. It's really good, but basically you can get up and running in no time and you can customize your keyboard to your liking. If you're new to split keyboards or you're new to the 60% layout, trust me, you're going to love it. One of my best things about having a split keyboard is that it really teaches you to properly touch type. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of a hurdle, maybe 1 week of having to practice to retype properly, but it is so worth it. Definitely put up with the struggle for the first week. It's so easy after you get the first hang of it. I'm going to share some websites at the bottom of the description of this video that really help me teach how to properly touch type. There are so many benefits that you can get when you learn how to properly touch type. For example, being able to use Homerow mods, or the ability to select anything on the screen just using a couple of keystrokes. Apps like the Homerow app for Mac OS or Fluent Search, which includes that type of feature on Windows, are absolutely amazing in reducing your need to use the mouse. Using the mouse is what causes a lot of repetitive strain injury. It also really slows you down when you're in the flow. Maybe you're editing, maybe you're coding or something like that. Being able to touch type is just so advantageous, especially now. All right, so let's talk about the software. This is just as important as the keyboard experience. If you have really crappy software and the programmability of the keyboard is not very easy or intuitive, then it pretty much renders the keyboard kind of useless. For example, I had other keyboards like the Keychron Q11, which was a nice split keyboard, but I really couldn't get the software to do what I wanted to do. For example, setting up Homerow mods. Now, thankfully, this is powered by an open source type of hardware controller software called QMK. And this uses a GUI wrapper called VIAL. Now, on your research for looking for a split keyboard, you may have heard of these terms like QMK, ZMK, VIAL, and then VIA. Let me quickly give you a crash course on what these all mean. QMK is like the kind of the OG open source software that originally came out and is widely supported and is continually adding features, things like tap dance, combos, and stuff like that. ZMK is like a fork of that, except it has a different type of agenda. I think it's trying to support Bluetooth wireless and stuff like that. So all in all, ZMK or QMK are pretty much equivalent in terms of functionality. What really matters is the GUI wrapper, the thing that allows you to quickly program your keyboard without having to write in C code or compile or do a build and flash your software. When I was reviewing the Kinesis Advantage 360 Pro, I really liked that it had ZMK and it had support for like Bluetooth wireless and out of the box and Homerow mods, but using the software was pretty clunky. Thankfully, there were open source solutions that offered you to, customize the software as you want, but then you had to do this build process step where you had to like save your configuration, put it to GitHub Actions, create a binary file, and then flash the keyboard. And it was a very cumbersome process and it took a lot of time. I just love being able to go into VIAL to the actual website, plug in my USB, whether it's wireless or wired, and then just go ahead and set it up and it instantly saves as I go. And it just makes tweaking your keyboard for your perfect experience and being able to quickly go into the website and change some setting really quickly or experiment with new settings is just nothing short of amazing. And if you're wondering the difference between VIAL and VIA, just know that VIAL is a lot better than VIA. Like I said, on my Keychron Q11, which I really like that keyboard, the software was just so limiting. I wasn't able to set up Homerow mods without having to flash a custom firmware. And it was just such an ordeal. So this here, thankfully, is absolutely amazing. So many great things you can do with this keyboard. Let's dive into all my favorite key bindings, my setup, kind of give you my philosophy, and maybe this can inspire you. Now, I'll share a link to all my settings that you can copy. I'm going to give you some screenshots, kind of some recommended settings, and kind of my rationale if you want to follow along asynchronously. Oh, and for this, I'm going to be using wired, and I'm going to explain why I prefer wired over wireless very shortly. So let's turn it off. Just simply turn it off like that. Now, the first thing you want to do is plug in the two halves first. This is for safety, whatever. And what I like about this keyboard, unlike some other keyboards, is that being able to plug in the USB cable is very easy. There's no issues with that. And trust me, there's some keyboards that have that issue. All right, so we're just going to go to the website called VIAL.rocks, and we're going to start, and we're going to connect to the wired. So you can see here, you can see that we have a 2.4 gigahertz. That's the connection, the Bluetooth that's the wireless connection. And then we have the wired. Now, if you can, I would recommend using the wired because you give a little bit more performance and you don't have to worry about battery. But apparently the battery lasts for 6 months. So, if you really want that convenience, go ahead and use the 2.4 gigahertz wireless. So we're going to quickly connect to it. Now, there is a desktop version of this software. You don't have to use it. I think the only functionality it provides extra is the ability to save your configuration to a file, which might be handy for backup. But everything's stored on the keyboard, nothing stored on the actual website. This is all just ephemeral in terms of having all your settings show up here. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is the layers. Now, the way I have it set up is that the zero layer, the first layer, is my Windows layer. You can see that I have Windows specific controls here. And if I go to layer 1, this is my Mac layer. Now, you can see the only thing that I have that's different from the zero layer is I have these Homerow mods over here, D and F and J and K. They're just mapped to different keys. And over here, it's a little bit different. Now, everything else is transparent. You can see by the triangle over here. Now, this is what I really like about this keyboard is the ability to use modifiers or layer taps. So basically what I'm trying to say here is if I hit the space bar once, I just tap it, it's going to register a space. But if I hold that and I press another key like E, for example, it's going to change the layer. And then if I hit E, it's going to be enter. So if I go to my OS agnostic layer, which is going to be layer 2 in my case, you can see that it points, that E points to TD1. Well, what is TD1? Well, that's tap dance 1. So what is that? So let's go to tap dance 1. So on tap, it's going to hit enter just as usual, like what I wanted originally. But if I hold it, if I hold the modifier key and I hold the E, it's actually going to send control enter. And what's really great about this is that sometimes you're, in some applications when you're, let's say you're on Google Keep and you want to type a message and you hit enter, it just skips to the new line. And if you want to actually save that, you have to hit control enter or command enter on Mac OS. I actually have a solution for that. Unfortunately, because of the limited layers, I have an alternative solution where if I go to, so if I press as a combo WER at the same time, it's going to send Alt Enter, which in my case is actually Command Enter. It's just how I set it up on Mac. So there's two ways for Windows and Mac on how I do Command Enter or Control Enter. And trust me, it just saves so much more time and it makes the whole experience more ergonomic. Instead of having to do, let's go into my Google Keep, for example. Let's say I'm typing a note where, let's say as I buy some socks and I hit Enter, I have to submit it. Instead of clicking out or anything like that, what I can do, and instead of hitting, the modifier key, control, and then enter, that's just too many things. All I have to do is hold this and then just press down. Done, just like that. Now, like I said before, being able to touch type is amazing. But that basically means that all your digits are mapped to specific rows of the keyboard and that you don't have to look at your keyboard ever again. Now, in the case of being able to manipulate the system, the computer, without having to use your mouse, I really recommend using things like Homerow app for macOS or Fluent Search. Let me just quickly show you what Fluent Search is. I'm going to go into Fluent Search, go into the settings. It's on the screen. So you can search your screen, and what you can do, I bind it to Control Alt F. It will click on something for that. So it's going to show a bunch of letters. So let's say I want to click on Google Keep. I press that, and then I hit QA. Now let's say I want to go back to VIAL. I just hit O, QA, and then go back to O, File. Now, what I'm trying to optimize here is reducing the movement of my mouse all the way here. It's like that strain of my hand moving just from the VIAL tab all the way to keep. That's just a lot of work. Now, obviously, I can use tabs. I can tab there, or I can use this thing where I can say, I have this really cool thing where I can say, go to VIAL, hit enter. That's just a Chrome extension, but that's just more of an example. Let's say I want to open up a specific extension. Let's say the 3 dot on the corner over here. Let's say I want to reach for that. And let's say my mouse is all the way here. All I'm going to do is search and then JW. And then there you can see I can scroll and click other things. So you can do this on Mac. It's a free app. These are both free apps and I really recommend it. Now how does this tie into the keyboard? Well, sometimes the OCR or the way it highlights characters doesn't really work. Sometimes you just got to use a mouse. Now, you typically want to have your hands always on the Homerow because, we're going to have Homerow mods. I'm going to explain that in a second. And just being able to get ready and go and do your next thing. What's really cool is that you can actually have mouse movement with QMK. And then ZMK later supported this, but this QMK was one of the few people. So the way I binded it is this. By the way, I do recommend rebinding the caps lock key to escape. But why just escape? Why not make it multi-purpose? So this LT3 means it's a layer tap. If I press it once, it's escape. But if I hold it down, it's going to go to layer 3. And what's on layer 3? Well, we got our mouse up, mouse left, down, blah, blah, blah. And we got some media controls here. And I think it's very intuitive to have it where these directional keys are. So let's just say I'm browsing around and I have to move my mouse around. You can see that it kind of accelerates, and honestly it's not that bad. It's sometimes like, okay, I want to go to macro, hit F there. Let's say I want to go to backlight, so I want to go to tap dance. Now you can customize the acceleration and all that stuff, but honestly in a pinch, if you don't have a mouse or sometimes you just can't reach it and you really don't want to move your hand to the mouse, just moving that mouse cursor just a little bit with your keyboard is nothing short of amazing. And of course, yeah, I can control the volume like up and down. You can see media next, I can play, pause, a lot of functionality. And I haven't even used all these extra keys. These are all transparent keys that just go to send keystrokes to the layer below it. So layer 2 is my agnostic keyboard. Both of these will map to it. So you can see that on the space bar, if I tap it on the Windows one, it goes to layer 2, but it has a transparent key, so it obviously goes to layer 2. Now, using the spacebar and the backspace for modifiers is so amazing. Like it just feels like so comfortable to have your thumbs there. Like let's say I want to, so I'm gonna hit Command, sorry, Control T. I just open up a new Chrome tab. I didn't have to overextend my arm and do the typical like move my hand over here and then hit Control T. Try to avoid doing that. I obviously have the habit of using the Control or the Alt down here, but you have it all here. So you can hit Control T, Control W just to close it. Now these are the Homerow mods. Now to set them up, it's really easy. So these are all the Homerow mods over here. What you want to do is go to layers, or sorry, quantum, and it's called, they're specifically Homerow mods, L shift_T, L left controller, left alt, blah, blah, blah. You just assign them respectively. In my case, I like to have the shift on the A. I like for it to be asymmetrical. So on the other side of the keyboard, on the right side, you can see that the colon is right shift and so forth. So you can see I have Control, Alt, and then Control. So you might be wondering, why do I have Control twice? Yes, you could put the Windows or the GUI key there, but I just didn't like that. I just don't really use, in Windows at least, I don't use the GUI key. On Mac, however, I have the GUI key here and then Alt, which is mapped to Command in actual Mac OS. So you can see here, I can have the option, depending on where I am, like where I'm typing, I might use Control on the S or on the F. Likewise here on the J or the L, they might be Control. That's just my quirks, how I like to set it up. Now on the mod tap layer, I really recommend things like E for enter, D for delete. Here's like more commonly used symbols. Like for example, here, this is going to be undercase. This is undercase. This is just dash over here. I have like comma, /, question mark. This is a really big one, going up and down, left, right, home, end, page up. All this cluster over here is very, very amazing. And of course your function rows over here. And I don't really use this side because honestly, I could probably deal with the keyboard being completely symmetrical and just cutting off this side over here, because I don't really want, that's the whole point of a 60% keyboard, is that you don't want to move your hand all the way down here. It really interrupts your flow, and just hitting your modifier. And then let's say you want to go up and down, let's say up. So I want to go up and down, go from home and end, highlight something. Now you can set up macros here. You can see that this macro M0 is actually binded to a very interesting tap dance. So you can combine all these things. So this here, I have to, in order to see my copy paste history, which is like right here, I have to press left shift, left alt, left control V. And like I could do that, yes, with the combo key here, like that, but it's very uncomfortable. I'm very used to on Mac OS, and this is something that was set up with Alfred, is that you just double tap the command, or in my case, the alt key, and it just pops it up. And I was like, I couldn't remap this with auto hotkey on Windows and all that stuff. I was really missing this functionality. It wasn't consistent, but it's great that you can do this on the actual keyboard, the hardware. Let me explain how that works. So I just set up your macro. You say down, left shift, left alt, control, and then you want to tap V, which is the command, and then up, and then blah, 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 like that. So you just want to release all the other modifiers. And what that does is it sends that specific command. So I double tap. But how do I set up that double tap? Well, you can see that it's binded to this key over here, which if I go back here, this is back to TD0. What is TD? That's tap dance. I go to TD0, and you can see on tap, it just sends the regular key, the default key, which is left alt. Obviously, it says function over here, but just ignore that. But if I double tap, and I can set a tapping term of 200 milliseconds, so within that short time of 200 milliseconds, if I double tap quick enough, it's going to actually send M0. And M0 is the macro. So this blew my socks away. I loved it so much. It's such a great whole experience. Here's one more quick one. I'm not going to go through all my favorite remappings and customization. What I like to do, unfortunately, I am still mouse dominant on my right hand sometimes, and I really use my left hand to control the keyboard as well. I have this setup where my left hand is always on the keyboard, and then my right hand is sometimes on the mouse more often than it should be, because I'm editing and stuff like that or whatever. Now, sometimes I want to clear up my windows and I want to close all these extra windows that are open. How do I do that? Well, unfortunately, you would have to, in Windows, if you hit Alt-Tab and then hit Delete, like for example, I'm going to delete here. In order to do that, I would have to hit my modifier key, which right now my left hand is already holding on a modifier, so I have to use my right hand, which takes my hand off the mouse. On a regular basic keyboard, you would have a delete key somewhere up here, so you would have to go ahead and touch it, and kind of a like very slow experience. So what instead is that I bind it the W to be remapped to delete if I hold the Alt key. So let me just go give a quick demo. So here I'm gonna do the old way, which is, hold the modifier key, and now we're in delete, and then hit D, that deletes it. But wouldn't it be so much easier if I could just hit W, one-handed operation, just one-handed operation, very, very easy, just like that. So the way you do that is, it's very simple. You say enable it, you say the trigger is going to be W, and the trigger mod is going to be the left Alt, and then the replacement key is delete. And then you just have these two options down here. Very simple, right? You just, whenever I hold the modifier, change the W to a delete, and then it just closes it. The only issue is that this has to also be supported on Mac OS, and on Mac OS, by default, hitting Command Tab and then hitting W actually closes the window by default. So now I have to remap that to delete. I kind of do wish that they had more layers, and I've sent an email out, and hopefully they can, reflash this or provide a firmware update such that it expands the more firmwares, unless there's a memory limit, which hopefully isn't the case. I mean, we have so many like tap dances. We have 31 tap dances, 32 combos, so many key overrides, and only like 15 macros. I mean, I'm already filling them out quite quickly. So no, I'm not even close. So I'm not even halfway there of using all my macros. So I hope that quick intro really got you excited to use the VIAL software. Basically, it's a GUI wrapper to QMK, so you don't have to manually hard code everything. Make a build and then flash your keyboard. It is super fast. Everything's saved automatically, and you don't have to even download the software. Although I think the desktop app is nice to have if you want to save your configuration. So in terms of competition out there, there's plenty. I mean, there are so many different types of keyboards. You have like columnar staggered keyboards. You have concave keyboards like the Kinesis or the Ergo Glove 80. You have this UHK V2, and they recently came out with the 80% version. So both these keyboards are strikingly very similar, except this one is a little bit more expensive, and it has extra features. For example, you have the ability to add different modules on the left side. So for example, here I can put this really cool, nifty extra extension. Now, here's the honest thing about this keyboard. I love it so much. I mean, I've been using this as my main driver until this came along. The thing about this keyboard is that it has a lot of extra features that I don't necessarily need. For example, like RGB has this like clicky button here. It has those mods. Obviously, these mods can be bought separately, but I think a lot of engineering went into, even just making this connect perfectly together and stay put. Like, this is a really cool feature of it. But do I really need that feature? I mean, it stays put together. This one here does kind of combine together, but I mean, it doesn't really stay put as much as the other one. But you have to ask yourself, do you really need these features? Like, what I really care about is the typing experience. Does it feel good to type on? Is it comfortable to use? And most importantly, is the software customizable? Can I bend it to my very niche abilities so that I can have the best experience ever? And I'd say this definitely satisfies it. It feels so good to type on. I think the foam and the PBT keycaps and the sound profile of this is, honestly a lot better than this one. I had to do a lot of work to make this sound a little bit better. I had to put some O-rings to kind of soften it up, and I never really liked the sound profile of this. It was too clink clackety. It didn't sound as nice, and the typing experience, for some reason, I just type a lot slower than I do on this keyboard, where the switches are just very nice and lubricated. By the way, the brown switches have a very, very subtle tactile bump. Like, it's almost non-existent. It almost feels like linear switches. Anyways, that's a quick side note, but I type a lot faster on this, like well over 100 words per minute, whereas with this one, I could barely get, to 70. I don't know why that's the case. So ask yourself, do you need all these extra features, RGB, or are you okay with kind of something that is a little bit more basic? Now, I do have some cons of this keyboard. As you saw before, my biggest gripe with this keyboard is the lack of layers. I'm really hoping that they can solve this with a firmware update. Another con with this keyboard is that I had trouble using this in the wireless dongle when I was trying to set up Homerow modifiers. For whatever reason, if I typed really fast, it would always activate the modifier layer when I didn't want it to. Whereas when this is connected wired, it totally never fails. It's super, I can type really fast, and I feel like I have a lot of control of when I want to activate the modifier layer. And two minor things. One thing I do miss from the Ultimate Hacking keyboard is the ability to dynamically record a macro, save it on just the board, not have to program it on the software, and then replay that macro. Now, QMK does support that feature, but for some reason, it's not enabled on this. Like I said, this also could be updated with a firmware. In fact, all the three issues that I raised could be fixed through software, and I hope that their team can fix it. And I guess the last thing I want to say about this keyboard is that I really wish it came in black. Now, I do like the white color. It looks very nice. The keycaps obviously can be replaced. You can change them for like darker black keycaps, so it makes the keyboard seem a lot more dark, and then you just have like a white edge. But I do wish that they would offer a black version. I mean, black and white, pretty standard colors. Maybe in a future iteration they can do that. So that's the end of my review of the NocFree Lite. Overall, this is a fantastic keyboard. The software The VIAL wrapper to QMK is absolutely amazing. I love how intuitive it is, and I just love the typing experience of this. It feels so good, and especially how much value it delivers at that price point on their website right now. I see it on sale. I mean, this is a no-brainer, especially with all the higher priced split keyboards that are so expensive. Finally, something is a little bit more accessible. I definitely recommend checking out. I'll leave a link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. And let's say after a long day of work, you just want to quickly shut off your computer. Well, check out this combo. Just shuts down my computer, just like that.